I'm going to turn this over to Chaplain Green, who is the I-Corps chaplain, First Corps chaplain. Sorry, so there you go. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks. I hope everyone's doing well today. It's good to be here. And I have an initiative that I want to share with you. But before I do that, since this is a family event, I wanted to tell you a little bit about my family. So several years ago, I wanted to say something important to my dad. I said, man, I really want to tell my dad this, and I didn't quite know how to do it. I was like, wow, how in the world am I going to tell my dad what I really want to tell him? And so I kind of struggled with it, and I struggled with it, and I struggled with it. And I says, you know what? I'm gonna tell my dad I love him. Isn't that amazing? I says, I'm gonna tell my dad I love him. Because, you know, I can help you understand that the era that my dad grew up in was an era where they didn't necessarily say that to us a whole lot. But what they did is, I mean, without a doubt, provided and did everything they could to make sure, not so much today, but he did, to make sure that I knew he loved me. So I came up with a plan. This is a family event, right? So I came up with a plan. I says, man, I'm gonna call my dad, and I'm gonna tell him. So I got on the phone. I said, hey, Dad, how's it going? And he said, hey, Bill, I'm doing okay. You know, I said, oh, yeah, right. And so at the end of the conversation, you know, it was that time for me to say it, and I said, we love you, Dad. So I hung up, you know, and I was like, man, I messed up. I didn't do it. And I thought I'd kind of built up the courage to do it because I didn't know how he would respond. I wasn't sure. You know, I figured, I was like, man, you know, I don't know if I want to do this because, you know, I don't know how he's going to respond. So I called him again, and this is going to be within my time. So I called him again, and then, you know, we got to the end of the conversation, and I said, we love you, Dad. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is much harder than I thought it was gonna be. Way harder than I thought it was gonna be because for me, it was important for me to say that to him. It was a personal value for me, you know, to be able to tell my dad I loved him. And so I tried again. And so the third time wasn't quite a charm. I came up with another way to say, you know, hey, we really missed you, Dad. And so the fourth time, I was talking to my dad, got to the end of the conversation, and I said, hey, Dad, I love you. And he says, Bill, I love you too. And so every time now, just this weekend, I spoke to my dad. And before I could say it to him, he said it to me. He says, I love you, Bill. That was so important to me because I didn't ever want there to be a point in my journey where I did not say that to my dad, and that being, I love you, Dad. So in the true spirit of kind of combining this hope scale initiative, because love is a four-letter word and hope is a four-letter word, I want to share a little bit about what we're doing with our spiritual fitness working group in terms of the Hope Scale Initiative. We have partnered with a group of individuals from the University of Oklahoma, and we are in the process of pushing what we call the Hope Scale Initiative. The Hope Scale Initiative is tied directly to the Army values, and it's also tied directly to several other programs that we have. So I'm going to go ahead to the next slide, please. So what is it? So it is, as I said, it's an initiative that's led by the Spiritual Fitness Working Group. And that word spiritual is not designed to make anybody afraid, because I've already heard some things here, some testimonies, if you will, of ways individuals have reached out and showed compassion and care and love for others. So the Army's definition of this word spiritual is one's purpose, core values, beliefs, identity, and life vision. These elements, which define the essence of a person, enables one to build inner strength, make meaning of experiences, behave ethically, persevere through challenges, and be resilient when faced with adversity. An individual's spirituality draws upon personal, philosophical, psychological, and/or religious teachings and forms the basis of their inner character. So when we talk about the Hope Scale Initiative, there's a part of that definition that I just read that talks about life vision. And what we want to do with the Hope Scale Initiative is tap into individuals' life vision, goals and plans they have for life. And so that's just not in the Army, so to speak, but it's also connected with our families, that we want to make sure that our families have those same type of character traits, or at least those goals, and that they have ways to go about achieving those goals. So it is a values-focused program. It's not necessarily a religious program, although it can be for the individual if that's the way they want to express it. But it is a values-based program, and what it does is it touches all 5 areas of the Comprehensive Soldier Family Fitness Campaign. It involves a 12-question questionnaire that talks about agency and pathways. And what I'll do is I'll explain what agency and pathways mean as it relates to the Hope Scale. And on the 27th, from the 26th to the 28th of October, we plan on having a Hope Scale Initiative conference. And what we would like to do is invite members from the FRG to attend that if they so desire. It's going to be a 3-day conference. It will be done by a couple PhDs from the University of Oklahoma, and it should be what we call a deep dive into the subject of hope. I'm so happy this morning I got up and I had hope, and I know exactly what that means. Next slide. So, some important thoughts about hope, and I'll let you read these, okay? I think all of us may have been in that place at some point in our journey before. I have. I can absolutely say that. But what made it better for me was that I had a really positive outlook on the next day. Next slide, please. Okay. And the next slide. Now, I know that I stand between you and lunch, and so I'm, like I said, I am almost finished. My purpose here today is to introduce to you the initiative that we are pushing with the Spiritual Fitness Working Group. But I want you to look at this next definition as well, life satisfaction. Okay, retrospective appraisal. Life satisfaction is a retrospective appraisal that involves assessing the extent that an individual has realized personal values and obtained desired goals. Okay? Key is the word values and, of course, goals. And so when I talk Hope Initiative, the Hope Initiative is tied into, as I said earlier, the Army values or values, whatever those values may be. I remember one time I was given a presentation as a battalion chaplain in Korea. And so I was doing this for my soldiers in my unit. And so I said, hey, can somebody tell me where you get your values? Right now, can anybody tell me where you get your values? Somebody says Army values. Can I hear someone else? Parents. There you go. Someone else? Some people, the Bible. Well, this particular guy, because I'm not going to let you keep telling me where you get them from, but this person says he gets his from the police. And I kind of had to think about that for a minute. I'm going like, wow. So, in terms of him being a law-abiding citizen and doing the things that he needed to do to make sure that he was walking his straight and narrow, he said he got his from the police. But it's a values discussion. It's a deep dive values discussion. Next slide, please. So, look at these, and we talk social, emotional, family, spiritual, and physical. The dimensions, because some people may not be able to see this, the dimensions of total well-being are intertwined and inseparable. They represent an integrated system. The spiritual dimension can be viewed as the mechanism that integrates the other components, through which, typo there, growth occurs. Now, remember, when we talk about spiritual with the Spiritual Fitness Working Group, we are focusing primarily on values. Values. Next slide, please. So, a little bit of positive psychology here. It says, what if we study what's right with people instead of what's wrong with people? What if we just focused on some of those positive things? And we do what we did when I went through a program called Clinical Pastoral Education, and we talked about our growing edges. Those areas where I can do better. And I discovered those through the process of a group that was compassionate and caring and lifted up those issues for me so that I, as an individual, could address them. What if we do it in that particular format? What are the psychological traits, that is strength, that allow individuals, groups, and communities to thrive? Hope is definitely one of them. Because there are some people in the world that we live in that they don't necessarily have a lot of hope. And sometimes that world is not as far away as we think it might be. It may be very, very close to us. And what leads to happiness and well-being? I believe hope does. Hope. We believe as a Spiritual Fitness Working Group that hope can lead to happiness and well-being. Next slide. So, to bring this home for you, when we talk about hope and to define it, it is defined as a cognitive set that is based on an I'm having a tongue-tied moment. It's iteratively derived sense of successful willpower, which is agency, and way power towards a goal. So your willpower is, I may have the will to do something, but I may not always have the way. And for some people, they may have a way, but not necessarily the willpower to do it. In the Army, I can just say, if you can combine this with just some of the basic counseling that we do for some of our soldiers, all right? If you can combine that with just some of the basic counseling that we do, it can help people make it through some difficult and challenging times. And one of the key things, which was brought out by Ms. Allen earlier, when she talked about someone took the time and a moment to notice something that was not going right in the life of another person. Just taking the time. Just showing compassion and care. So the bottom line here is that it's three main goals of the HOPE initiative. That is our goals, that our behavior is determined by goals, and obtaining goals results in positive well-being, all right? The other one is pathways. That's the way we think. Cognitive maps, routes to goals. I have a plan to reach my goal. And then third, the agency. Am I capable? How am I going to go about accomplishing those goals? I believe that this it touches what you do as the family readiness groups. And I, for one, will tell you that I'm extremely appreciative of everything you do. And I know that sometimes the work is difficult and it is hard, but extremely appreciative of everything you do to make sure that you reach out and show compassion and care. Sometimes in instances when the soldier is gone and the spouse and our children are left behind until they come back, I know that we could not absolutely do what we do without what you bring to the table every day. So I want to thank you. I think I have one last slide, maybe, and that's questions. And I hope I'm under the time limit for lunch, and I was able to tell you a little bit about my family and how I worked through telling my dad I love him. Any questions? Yes, ma'am. Yeah, right now I believe we're planning on holding it here, right here at the center here. The 26th, 27th, and 28th of October. We will. I will provide that information to Ms. Allen to make sure, because we'll have one email box that we'll get everything headed to in terms of the registration. Registration, excuse me.
Is it geared for active duty and spouses?
Yes, it is. Yes. We wanted to expand it, so there'll be some behavioral health specialists there, some chaplains. You'll see a good number of chaplains there because it's an outgrowth of our spiritual fitness working group, and so we wanted to make sure that we get our chaplains and chaplains assistants trained on this deep dive that we're going to take on the subject.
Is this something that you could come and brief at FRG meetings?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Because we're training your chaplains, so the unit chaplains should be able to come and brief it at the FRG meeting. Yes, ma'am.
Can you attend one day and not 3?
I believe you can. I don't think that would be problematic. It would mean that you would probably miss as they dig deeper and deeper into the subject. It'd be more beneficial if you probably attended, if you could attend 2 days, because there's going to be a portion where I think we're inviting the Pew Foundation to do a piece up front on just how diverse America is, and that we're not. And get me what I'm saying. When I talked about spiritual fitness, it's a wide sight aperture, if you will, for a lot of people, and it means many different things to many people. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to definitely focus on the entire group, the community, if you will. So, yes. All right. I think it's lunchtime. Thank you once again. I appreciate the time. Thanks.